Hello, and we're back to talk Moana 2. And if you didn't know that that was a reference to a song in Moana 2, I don't blame you, because the songs are kind of forgettable. Except for that one Bat Lady song. Yeah.
Gave me cookie guy.
Entertainment.
So Moana 2 is a strange movie for me to talk about, because it opened to pretty middling to negative reviews. But the truth is, I actually kind of liked it. I don't think it was on par or as good as the first Moana movie, but I thought it was solid enough, so I wasn't all that interested in making a rewrite video for it. But it's when I started to dig into the reasons why people were upset with this movie. Things started to make more sense. So here's the quick version if you didn't already know it. But Moana 2 originally began production as a series for Disney Plus before Disney and Bob Iger decided it would be more profitable for them to adapt the series into a movie or two movies. I'm not sure how much of it goes into the upcoming Moana 3. So the result of that is if you're watching Moana 2 and you're like, well, these characters are a little underdeveloped. This plot feels a little episodic. Well, that's why. All that time you would have in a show to develop an ensemble cast, things like that would have to be left on the cutting room floor of a movie. And I feel like the place where you can most see the outline of that original show, the DNA of the show in the movie, is in the songs. Because, if you assume there's one major song per episode of a show, then you actually start to see these clear lines. You see opening episode, you see exploring the ocean, you see training arc, you see big finale, or at least mid-season finale, because again, I don't know how much of the show this movie covers. So if I was going to make a rewrite for this movie, which I am, I'm filming this, you're watching it, that would be my primary goal. I would like the movie to feel more cohesive from start to finish. I want some of those cracks in the facade to go away, or at least spackle over them a little bit. Yeah, I'm basically like a house flipper in this scenario, I guess. And so when I sat down and I looked at Moana 2 from that more episodic lens, I saw about 5 or 6 episodes of television there that were whittled down into a movie. And I feel like where the most cutting took place had to surround the subplot of the Bat Lady herself, Matangi. And when I started to look at her character in particular, that's when the rewrite really started to take shape in my mind. Through her, I saw a means to accomplish the goal that I had. And so with that in mind, here is my version of Moana 2, now with at least 20% more bat.
It's time to get lost.
Right off the bat, one thing that did not really work for me in the original Moana 2 is the whole comet idea. I get why it's in the movie. It's to add this sense of urgency, this ticking clock. Moana has to follow the comet right now to Metru Nui, or she will never find it again, and her people will eventually all die out. And the comet does lead Moana to the giant clam, but it's unclear why it was ever there in the first place. It just explodes after a certain point. It might be a sign from the ancestors, but you know who else really wants to lead Moana to a giant clam?
My mom!
No, it's Matangi. Her whole thing is she wants to team up Maui and Moana. She wants to get them to the same place, point them in the right direction, so that she can team them up against Nalo and free herself from the curse. So why not just have it be her who lures Moana from the beginning? We open with scenes of bats exploring various islands, looking for Moana, and then on Moana's opening expedition, she finds one, and it follows her back to her island, and ever since then, she starts to have these strange visions, and she keeps seeing these bats, not knowing what is going on, to the point where she finally has to go and figure this out. What is happening? Who is calling me out? So now the plot of this movie isn't set in motion by some vague force of nature. It's set into motion by a character with motivations we can understand. Now, to be clear, I still want Matangi to be a villain, because that's one of my favorite villain songs in the last decade. She captured Maui, she lured Moana here. Sure, she gives Moana advice, she tells her where and how to break Nalo's curse, but that's all in her own interests. Sure, she might look like a bit of a sympathetic character, but I want to keep some of that villainous undertone. Like, Moana doesn't totally trust her right now, but it just so happens that their interests align. Some enemy of my enemy type beat. Now, I was debating writing this next section, and I might even cut it from the video because it isn't super necessary. Like, in the moment, you won't have any of this information. But just for my own sanity, I wanted to address how Moana touching Motufutu frees Matangi, because I don't remember them addressing that at all in the original movie. And so this is what I decided on. The giant clam is the curse. It's like a pocket dimension that Nalo has access to. Whatever enters it cannot exit it. And if you break one curse tied to the giant clam, the whole thing falls apart. Everything in the clam gets released. That is how freeing Motufutu also frees Matangi. And yes, there are monsters in there because I believe in the original they're going to the realm of monsters. That's where Nalo hid the island. And I don't think it's a stretch to just make it a pocket dimension and say these are monsters that Nalo has captured over the years. Like, yes, freeing them is going to cause problems, but also I think that could work to Disney's benefit. Because, like, if they still wanted to do a series after these movies, Maui and Moana hunting down some rogue Nalo monsters, that's like perfect series material. You're welcome. But yeah, that's not information Moana or Maui would have at this point. Like, Matangi's just going to tell him, like, hey, touch the island, you break the curse, don't even worry about anything else. It's all going to be fine. Like, that's kind of the manipulative aspect of her character. But for me, I wanted to know what was happening in this movie, even if Moana didn't. Okay, getting back on track, we finally enter that portal to the depths of the clam, and we sail into the waters that hide Motufutu. And after some monster struggles that has Moana doubting her team's ability to pull this off, it has her doubting herself as a leader and a wayfinder, she gets that terrible motivational speech / song from The Rock, and we get the final showdown. Yes, I'm keeping the terrible motivational song because, like, I think the idea of a training arc song is fun. I just don't think it was executed perfectly. And to be clear, this is not a confrontation between Moana and Nalo directly. This is a confrontation between Moana and Nalo's curse. Think of it like a security system. Like, if a human gets so close in approaching, it springs into action and it goes into defense mode. And now I want to zero in on one aspect of this final fight because it is single-handedly my biggest issue with Moana 2. It is what I walked out of the theater feeling the most hollow about, and the thing I wished the screenwriters had done differently. My single biggest issue with Moana 2 was Maui losing his tattoos, losing his power, and just having them restored like a couple scenes later with no lasting consequence. Like, no, you don't get to do something that impactful just to walk it back immediately and so completely like it never happened. Like, I would love to have this be a point that sticks for Maui and his character and see how he reacts to this in the next movie. But in lieu of that, and trying to keep the ending more in line with the original, here's my version of that fight. So rather than having all of Maui's tattoos and his power burned from him in one stroke of lightning, I would like Maui to take multiple impacts throughout this fight so that the tension starts to rise. We see what's happening. Nalo is slowly chipping away at who Maui is. Maui cuts through one storm, but he loses a bicep tattoo. He flashes through a lightning bolt, but a tattoo on his back suddenly fades from view, and this is really distressing him. He feels the toll that this battle is taking on him. And yet he fights. He fights to keep his promise to Moana. He fights to keep her safe until he does take that enormous blast of energy like we see in the movies, and all of his tattoos are burned off, even Mini Maui. All of his tattoos except two. Maui's going to keep the tattoo of his mother abandoning him and throwing him into the ocean. This is the tattoo that represents all of Maui's pain and trauma, and this being one of the only things he has left permanently attached to him is a visual symbol of just how low he's being laid in this moment. And we see that. We see, I believe that tattoo is on his back. We see that tattoo and we think that's the only one he has left. But no, he has one more. And we see this tattoo. It's proudly on his chest. It is the tattoo of Moana on her canoe waving. And this reminds him what he's fighting for. It urges him to keep going. It allows him the strength to lift the island just a couple feet more before the power of the lightning is too much for him and he is thrown to the side. And then in the end, once Moana is killed by Nalo's curse and raised as a demigod, she gets her first tattoo and Maui earns a new one. It covers like most of his belly, coming up, maybe peeking at his chest, and it is complete with a new mini Maui. This is going to be a mini Maui plunging his fishhook into the depths and raising Motofatu. And if we want to, just like the original, we could pretty much end things right there. Moana is the new demigod of the ocean, and she has just reconnected the people of the ocean, and she is happy to get back to her family. It's actually an ending that I liked quite a bit. But I said I wanted to unite this movie start to finish. So where is Matangi? Well, I would like to add one more scene that completely changes the end of this movie and changes what we're going to get in the third movie. So this is like, all of this is fan fiction, but this is the most fan fiction it gets. So if you're happy with the way Moana ended, you can shut it off here. But I would like to add one more scene between a meeting of the gods, Maui, Moana, and Nalo. This is Moana and Nalo's first time actually meeting, and this is where he reveals she might have just made a huge mistake. Because this is where Moana learns what the actual cost of breaking that curse is. Nalo reveals to her that not only has Moana just released several dozen extremely dangerous waters into the oceans of man, but she also released his most dangerous capture ever, Matangi, who a millennia earlier planned to use mankind, use their collective power to fuel something truly sinister. And the only way that Nala was able to stop her plan was to isolate, separate mankind so that she couldn't use them for her own gain. But now she's returned, and they're going to have to work together to stop her. And that is my version of Moana 2, and a hint at my pitch for what a Moana 3 would be. But please let me know what you thought of the actual Moana 2. Did you love it, or did you hate it, or were you one of those weirdos like me who kind of liked it but was somewhere in the middle? Be sure to let me know what you might have changed in the comments and why Tamatoa should have been the main villain, like the Thanos of the Moana cinematic universe. Sorry for throwing a twist villain in there at the end. Like, I see why Disney likes to do these because they're kind of fun to write. But please do like this video if you liked it and subscribe for the next one. Till then, get lost.